There's a river in New Zealand that is legally owned by itself. Not metaphorically, not symbolically. By actual law, the Whanganui River has the same rights as a human being. And it can sue you. This is a country where mountains are considered ancestors, where women gained the right to vote before anywhere else on earth, and where you can dig your own hot spring spa on a beach using nothing but a shovel. But here's what no travel guide will tell you. New Zealand might be the world's most eccentric country, hiding secrets that challenge everything you thought you knew about reality itself. The question isn't whether these 15 facts will surprise you. The question is, are you ready to see a place where the impossible becomes everyday life? Over the next 30 minutes, you'll discover 15 mind-bending facts about Aotearoa, the land of the long white cloud, that will completely reshape how you see this island nation. These aren't just tourism statistics or scenic highlights. These are stories that reveal the soul of a place where ancient Polynesian wisdom meets cutting-edge innovation, where nature holds legal rights, and where an entire culture was nearly lost, then brought back from the brink. If you're ready for this journey into the extraordinary, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because every week, we explore places where the world reveals its hidden possibilities. And trust me, you won't want to miss what we discover next. Stay until the end, because I need your perspective on something that even locals are still debating. But first, let's start with perhaps the most beautiful form of cultural resurrection you'll ever witness. Number 1. The playground revolution that shocked linguists. In 1979, linguists predicted Te Reo Maori would be extinct within 30 years. Only 5% of Maori children could speak their ancestral language. The diagnosis was terminal. Then something extraordinary happened. Maori grandmothers decided to ignore the government's education system entirely. They opened Kohanga Reo, language nests, where children aged 0 to 5 were immersed completely in Te Reo Maori. No English allowed. Traditional songs, stories, and games became the curriculum. Today, over 60,000 children have graduated from these programs. Te Reo Maori isn't just surviving, it's thriving. You'll hear it in Parliament, on television, and in hip-hop songs. A language brought back from near death by the revolutionary idea that culture isn't taught in classrooms. It's lived in playgrounds. What role do you think grandparents should play in preserving culture? Share your thoughts below in the comments. I genuinely want to read every response about how your own family keeps traditions alive. But this cultural resurrection is just the beginning of New Zealand's defiance of the impossible. Number 2. When geography becomes family drama. Mount Taranaki wasn't always alone on New Zealand's North Island. According to Maori legend, and geological evidence confirms this, he once lived in the central volcanic plateau with Mount Tongariro, Mount Ngoroho, and Mount Ruapehu. The story goes that all the male mountains were competing for the love of Mount Pahanga, the only female peak. When Mount Tongariro won her affections, the heartbroken Mount Taranaki fled west in the middle of the night, carving out the Whanganui River Valley as he dragged his massive bulk toward the coast. Here's what makes this bizarre. Geologists say a massive landslide actually did move Mount Taranaki to his current position, leaving behind the perfectly circular Egmont National Park. Ancient oral tradition recorded geological fact as family drama. This isn't just folklore. For Maori, mountains are literal ancestors. When someone introduces themselves, they often name their mountain first, because that's where their identity stands. But wait until you hear about the country that turned rebellion into a national export. Number 3. The grandmother who broke history. September 19, 1893. While women in America and Britain were decades away from voting rights, something unprecedented happened in New Zealand. Every woman in the country, Maori and Pakeha, gained the right to vote in national elections. This wasn't a gradual political evolution. It was a revolution led by Kate Shepherd and the Women's Christian Temperance Union. They collected signatures on a petition so long it stretched the entire length of Parliament when unrolled. 1/4 of all adult women in the country had signed it. The vote was razor-thin, passed by just 2 votes. New Zealand became the first self-governing nation on Earth to grant universal women's suffrage. They didn't ask for permission. They demanded recognition of something they believed was simply obvious. Democracy without women isn't democracy at all. Today, New Zealand has had 3 female prime ministers. The current parliament is nearly 50% female. That 1893 petition didn't just change New Zealand. It sent shockwaves around the world, proving change was possible. But progressive politics is just one way this country defies expectations. Wait until you see what happens when you give tourists a shovel. Number 4. The DIY Wellness Revolution. At Hot Water Beach on the Coromandel Peninsula, tourists arrive with shovels and create their own personal hot springs by digging holes in the sand. This isn't a gimmick, it's geology. Underground thermal springs heat the sand to temperatures reaching 64 degrees Celsius, 147 degrees Fahrenheit. But here's the catch. You can only access this natural spa for 2 hours either side of low tide. Miss the window, and you're just digging holes in cold sand. Locals bring camping chairs, thermos flasks, and often spend entire afternoons socializing in their sandy hot tubs, while waves crash just meters away. It's become a strange ritual of communal relaxation, where strangers share shovels and compare the perfect pool temperature. The incoming tide erases all evidence until the next low tide. Nothing permanent, nothing built. Just temporary wellness created by your own hands and nature's underground furnace. Have you ever created your own entertainment using nothing but natural resources? Tell me about it in the comments. I'm curious about the most creative outdoor experiences you've made from scratch. Speaking of natural wonders, this next fact literally changes how you see the universe. Number 5. Where light pollution goes to die. The Rocky Mackenzie International Dark Sky Reserve covers 4,300 square kilometers and is one of the largest gold-rated dark sky areas on Earth. But what makes it truly special isn't just the absence of light pollution. It's what locals call Southern Hemisphere privilege. From here, you can see both the Southern Cross and parts of the Milky Way's galactic center that are completely invisible from the Northern Hemisphere. On a clear night, you can see the large and small Magellanic Clouds, entire neighboring galaxies, with your naked eye. The Mount John Observatory offers night tours where astrophotographers regularly capture images that win international competitions. But locals know the secret. The most mind-blowing experience isn't through a telescope. It's lying on your back in the tussock grass, watching satellites trace paths between the stars while complete silence surrounds you. In a world where 80% of people live under light-polluted skies, New Zealand offers something increasingly rare. The universe as our ancestors saw it, in all its terrifying, beautiful immensity. Do you think humans have lost something essential by covering the night sky with artificial light? Type 1 in the comments if you believe we need more dark sky reserves, or 2 if you think city lights are worth the trade-off. But if cosmic perspectives feel too vast, let's return to something wonderfully absurd. Number 6. The translucent obsession. Every winter, entire communities on New Zealand's west coast gather by rivers, holding massive nets and waiting. They're hunting whitebait, tiny, translucent fish barely larger than matchsticks. These aren't just any fish. They're the juvenile form of 5 different native fish species, and they're only available for a few months. Locals will drive hours, stand in freezing rivers for entire days, and guard their fishing spots like family secrets. The resulting whitebait fritters, essentially an omelet with tiny whole fish, sell for astronomical prices, sometimes $200 per kilogram. It's New Zealand's most expensive comfort food, and locals consider it worth every dollar. Here's what's beautifully absurd. Many locals spend more money on petrol getting to their fishing spot than they pay to just buy whitebait at the shop. But that's missing the point entirely. This isn't about fish. It's about the ritual, the community, the connection to seasons and rivers that have sustained people for generations. From the tiniest fish to the fluffiest phenomenon that literally built a nation. Number 7. How 70 million sheep created a nation's psychology. Everyone knows New Zealand has a lot of sheep, but the numbers are staggering in ways that shaped the entire national character. At peak, in 1982, there were 70 million sheep, 22 sheep for every human being. This created the world's most efficient farming system. New Zealand sheep shearers hold world records, with the fastest able to shear a sheep in 37 seconds flat. But here's the psychological impact. This abundance bred a particular Kiwi trait called number 8 wire mentality. Named after the heavy-duty wire used for farm fencing, it's the ability to fix anything, solve any problem, using whatever materials are at hand. When you're managing thousands of sheep across vast, remote properties, you can't wait for the repair shop. You innovate. This mentality gave the world the jet boat, bungee jumping, the electric fence, and even the modern zipper. A nation built on sheep farming accidentally created a culture of inventors and problem solvers. What's the most creative solution you've come up with using limited resources? I'd love to hear your number 8 wire moments below. But innovation isn't New Zealand's only superpower. This next fact reveals their mastery over something far more dangerous. Number 8. How one mountain shaped two worlds. Mount Tongariro doesn't just look like Mount Doom from Lord of the Rings. It actually is Mount Doom. But this volcano's real story is far more dramatic than any fiction. Tongariro is still very much active, with its last major eruption in 2012. But here's what's extraordinary. In 1887, the local Maori chief, Te Hiuhu Tekino IV, made a decision that would preserve these volcanic peaks forever. Knowing that European settlers were rapidly claiming Maori land, he gifted the mountains to the Crown to create New Zealand's first national park. It was a brilliant strategic move. By giving the mountains to all New Zealanders, he ensured they could never be privately owned or developed. Today, the Tongariro Alpine Crossing is New Zealand's most famous day hike, attracting thousands. But every step walks over one of the most sacred landscapes in Maori culture, mountains that are literal ancestors, not just scenic backdrops. This dual identity, sacred ancestor and tourist destination, perfectly captures New Zealand's ongoing tension between preservation and accessibility. Speaking of sacred spaces, the next fact reveals architecture that reads like a family tree. Number 9. Living architecture that breathes stories. When you enter a Maori meeting house, a Waranui, you're not walking into a building. You're walking into the body of an ancestor. The ridgepole running along the ceiling is the ancestor's spine. The rafters extending down are the ribs. The central carved post is the heart. Even the front-facing carved figure above the entrance represents the ancestor's head, watching over all who enter. Every carving tells a specific story from that tribe's genealogy. The patterns aren't decorative. They're historical documents, genealogical records, and spiritual maps, all carved into wood. A single meeting house can contain centuries of oral history made visible. When people sleep inside during important ceremonies, they're literally being embraced by their ancestor. When they debate community issues, their ancestor is listening. It's architecture as living spiritual practice. Master carvers spend years learning to read these visual stories. Each geometric pattern, each facial expression, each hand position carries specific meaning that connects the present community to their deepest roots. How do you think buildings should reflect the culture and history of the people who use them? I'm curious about your perspective on whether modern architecture has lost something important. From ancient wisdom to modern madness, Our next fact involves a lighthouse that witnessed something impossible. Number 10. Where spirits begin their final journey. Cape Rena sits at New Zealand's northernmost tip, where the Tasman Sea collides with the Pacific Ocean in a line of white foam visible from space. But for Maori, this isn't just geography, it's the doorway between worlds. According to spiritual tradition, when a Maori person dies, their spirit travels north to Cape Rena, slides down the roots of an 800-year-old pohutukua tree, and begins the journey back to Hawaii, the ancestral homeland in Polynesia. Here's what's remarkable. This isn't just metaphor. For Maori, Cape Rena is literally where the physical world ends and the spiritual world begins. Visitors often report an inexplicable sense of finality and transition, even when they don't know the cultural significance. The lighthouse keeper's logs from the 1940s record numerous reports of unexplained lights and figures walking on the water. Whether you believe in spirits or not, there's something about this place that makes the boundary between the possible and impossible feel very thin. From the spiritual to the geological. Our next fact involves the earth literally cooking your dinner. Number 11. The cooking method that takes all day. In Rotorua, some families still cook their Sunday dinner using a method unchanged for over 700 years. It's called hangi, and it involves burying your food underground for 6 hours. First, you light a fire over volcanic rocks until they're white hot. Then you dig a pit, place the rocks at the bottom, layer wet sacks over them, and arrange your food, usually pork, chicken, potatoes, and kamara sweet potato, in baskets above the steam. The pit is sealed with earth and left untouched for hours. No peeking, no stirring, no temperature control. Just trust in ancient knowledge and geothermal heat. When you finally unearth your hangi, the meat falls off the bone, and everything has a distinctive smoky, earthy flavor impossible to replicate in any modern oven. The vegetables absorb minerals from the volcanic soil, creating tastes that are uniquely Aotearoa. But hangi isn't just about cooking, it's about community. The entire extended family participates in preparation, and the unveiling becomes a celebration. It's slow food taken to its logical extreme, from underground cooking to underground wine storage. The next fact involves a place that's rewriting the rules of what wine can be. Number 12. How a desert valley produces liquid gold. Central Otago looks like Mars, a harsh, seemingly impossible place to grow anything. Temperatures swing from -10 degrees Celsius in winter to 35 degrees Celsius in summer. The soil is schist and dust. It should be a viticultural disaster. Instead, it produces some of the world's finest Pinot Noir. The secret lies in that harsh environment. Grapevines, like people, often produce their best work under stress. The dramatic temperature swings force the grapes to develop thick skins and concentrated flavors. The high altitude and intense UV radiation create wines with extraordinary color depth. The schist soil provides perfect drainage while reflecting heat back onto the vines. Local vintners describe Central Otago wines as having mineral backbone and mountain soul, flavors that literally taste like the landscape. You can sense the sun, the stone, and the struggle in every sip. It's wine made the hard way, in a place that shouldn't work, but produces liquid poetry that wine critics around the world recognize as uniquely, unmistakably Central Otago. From wine to something far more mysterious, the next fact involves a forest, where even sound behaves differently. Number 13. Where nature holds its breath. In Fiordland's deep rainforests, you'll experience something most humans never encounter. True silence. Not quiet, Not peaceful, absolute, profound silence that becomes almost physical. Scientists have measured sound levels in parts of Fjordland at just 10 to 15 decibels, quieter than most recording studios. The dense canopy absorbs sound, the moss-covered ground muffles footsteps, and the forest creates an acoustic vacuum. But here's what's uncanny. After about 10 minutes in this silence, your hearing becomes so acute that you can hear your own heartbeat, your blood circulation, even your eye movements. Sounds that are normally below your conscious threshold suddenly become audible. When a single bird call finally breaks the silence, the liquid notes of a tuay or bellbird, it doesn't just sound beautiful. It sounds impossible, like the forest itself has found its voice. Then you round a corner and find a waterfall thundering down from heights that disappear into mist. And the contrast is so dramatic, it's almost painful. From profound silence to overwhelming natural symphony in a single step. From the stillest place on earth to the wildest coastline you'll ever experience. Number 14. Where the ocean writes history in wrecks. New Zealand's west coast has claimed over 500 ships in recorded history. The Tasman Sea doesn't forgive mistakes, and this coastline has earned names like the Graveyard Coast and Hell's Gates. But here's what makes it fascinating rather than just dangerous. The wrecks tell the story of New Zealand's development. Gold rush steamers, immigrant ships, and modern fishing vessels all lie beneath these waves, each representing a different chapter in the nation's growth. At low tide near Hokitika, you can walk among the rusted remains of the SS Hokitika, wrecked in 1876. Local kids grow up playing on these historical artifacts, treating century-old maritime disasters as their playground equipment. West Coast locals have developed an almost supernatural ability to read weather patterns. They can predict storms hours before meteorologists by watching cloud formations, wind patterns, and even how their cats behave. The coast always wins, locals say. It's not pessimism. It's respect for forces beyond human control, and an acknowledgement that some places remain fundamentally wild. Do you think humans should try to tame dangerous, natural environments, or learn to live with their wildness? Type 3. If you believe we should respect nature's power, or for if you think technology should make everywhere safe. Number 15. When nature gets legal rights. In 2017, New Zealand did something unprecedented in human legal history. The Whanganui River became a legal person, with all the rights and responsibilities that entail. This wasn't a symbolic gesture. It was a practical solution to a 140-year legal battle. The local Whanganui iwi had been fighting for recognition that they were inseparable from their river. In the Maori worldview, the river isn't a resource to be owned. It's a living ancestor. Now the river has two human guardians who can take legal action on its behalf. If you pollute the Whanganui River, you're not just breaking environmental law, you're potentially assaulting a legal person. The law has already influenced river management decisions. Development projects must now consider the river's rights alongside human and economic interests. It's forcing an entirely new conversation about humanity's relationship with nature. Other countries are watching closely. If a river can be a legal person, what about forests? Mountains? Entire ecosystems? New Zealand might have just started a global revolution in environmental law. Step back from these individual stories, and a larger truth emerges about New Zealand's real identity. This isn't just a country of stunning landscapes and adventure sports. This is a nation-sized laboratory for radical experiments in how humans can live differently. Every fact we've explored reveals the same underlying pattern, taking the impossible and making it an everyday reality. Reviving a dying language through children's games. Giving legal rights to a river. building cathedrals from cardboard, creating hot springs with shovels. New Zealand's greatest export isn't lamb or wine or tourism. It's proof that small communities can tackle massive challenges through innovation, collaboration, and a willingness to completely reimagine how things should work. They're showing the world that progress doesn't have to mean abandoning indigenous wisdom. That conservation can be a community adventure. That disaster can become an opportunity for radical creativity. In a world where division seems inevitable, New Zealand is quietly demonstrating that bicultural harmony isn't just possible. It can become a source of strength that makes everything else possible. But here's what I need to know from you. Remember that question from the beginning, about a place where the impossible becomes everyday life. We started at Cape Reina, where spirits begin their final journey. But maybe that's exactly backwards. Maybe this isn't where things end. Maybe New Zealand is where the impossible begins its journey into reality, where a dying language becomes a living celebration, where rivers become people, where silence becomes song. In a world that often feels stuck, paralyzed by the scale of its challenges, perhaps we need places that prove transformation is still possible. If these stories changed how you see what's possible when communities decide to think differently, share this video. There are people in your life who need to know that somewhere in the South Pacific, 5 million people are quietly revolutionizing what it means to be human. And here's my question for you. If you could give one element of nature legal rights to protect it, what would you choose and why? I genuinely want to read every response. Hit subscribe if you're ready to discover more places where the world reveals its hidden possibilities. Because every week, we're traveling to corners of Earth where the extraordinary hides in plain sight.